Hello, mighty companions. This is Earl Purdy. I want to welcome you to A Course in Miracles here on Facebook Live. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming. And we're going to talk about fear and conflict, what causes fear and conflict, and how you get rid of fear and conflict. So do you want to know how you let go of any kind of fear, any kind of conflict? What do you do? What's the steps? Well, today in A Course in Miracles on Facebook Live, that's what I'm going to talk about, and we're going to put the focus on the practical application of the ideas. That's what my focus is on in A Course in Miracles, is the practical application of the ideas. So thank you for coming. Thank you for tuning in, showing up live, and we're going to start out. I'm going to jump right in it. It's going to be on page 20. We're going to start off with page 29, and we're going to start out with, we're going to be on paragraph 4 on page 29 in the blue book, paragraph 4, page 29 in the blue book. And welcome to A Course in Miracles, and we're going to go through the guidelines of the Course in Miracles. When I go through the guidelines of the Course in Miracles, I'm really going through the guidelines for the Course in Miracles. That's the guidelines that the Course in Miracles itself is suggesting. It's telling us the best attitude to take in order to be able to take advantage of the Course in Miracles and hear the Course in Miracles. So when I share this with you, these are the attitudes that I'm asking you to take so that we can move rapidly and be able to hear the instructions that we're getting. Wow, okay. So glad to have a chance to hit some sanity. So what is it that you need to remember? What is it that you need to remember? What is it that is important to remember? You need not believe the ideas. 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 What else do you need to remember? You need to remember that you need not accept the ideas. What? You need not accept the ideas. You need not accept the ideas. You need not accept the ideas. Did I say you need not accept the ideas? Did I say you need not believe the ideas? What else? What else do you need to remember? Remember. What else is it that we need to remember? Remember. You need not even welcome the ideas. You need not even welcome the ideas. Some of the ideas you may actively resist. Some of the ideas you may actively resist. Some of the ideas you may actively resist. Some of the ideas you may what? Some of the ideas you may actively resist. And what else is true? What else is true? Some of the ideas you may find hard to believe. Some of the ideas you will find hard to believe. Maybe. And others may seem to be quite startling. So some of the things that the Course in Miracles says may startle you. Some of the things you hear from the Course in Miracles may startle you. Some of the things that you hear from A Course in Miracles may startle you. Some of the things you hear from A Course in Miracles may startle you. Some of the things you hear from A Course in Miracles you will find hard to believe. Some of the things you hear from A Course in Miracles you will find hard to believe. You are not asked to analyze the ideas at all. You are not asked to judge the ideas at all. The Course teaches that if you analyze the ideas, it will destroy the meaning of the ideas. So I do not analyze A Course in Miracles in my Course in Miracles classes. I'm not an analyzer. I'm here to be your remembering coach. I'm here to help you remember what the Course is saying, and I'm here to help you apply the ideas. So my focus is on remembering what it's saying, not on analyzing what it's saying, because it's saying what it's saying. You are not asked to judge the ideas at all. What is it that will give the ideas meaning to you? What will give the ideas meaning to you? What will give the ideas meaning to you is their use will give the ideas meaning to you and will show you that the ideas are true. Their use will give the ideas meaning to you and will show you that the ideas are true. So we're going to start with paragraph 4. So what is it that's your responsibility when it comes to fear? What is it that's your responsibility? The correction of fear is your responsibility. The correction of your fear is your responsibility. To correct your perception of whatever is making you afraid is whose responsibility? It is your responsibility. So what's happening when you ask for release from fear? When you ask God to release you from fear, when you ask the universe to release you from fear, you are implying that it's not your responsibility to correct the fear. That's why you're asking Spirit to correct your fear, because at some level, you've forgotten that it's your responsibility to correct fear or to correct guilt or to correct anger or to correct attack. Those are all the same things. The correction of separation. Separation is fear. So the correction of fear is whose responsibility? It's your responsibility. And when you ask for release from fear, you're implying it's not your responsibility. So what is it that you should ask for? Okay, you shouldn't ask for a release from fear. So what is it that you should be asking for? You should be asking for help. Instead of asking to be released from fear, you should be asking for help. My favorite prayer is simply, help me, God. Help me, God. Help me. Help me. Help me. You should be asking for help. And what should you be asking for help in? You should be asking for help in the conditions that's bringing your fear about. I need help in the conditions that are making me feel afraid. I need help in the conditions that I'm making myself feel afraid. I need help in the conditions that have brought my fear about. So don't ask for release from fear. Remember, my class is about practical application, not theory. So what is it that we've already been told? The correction of fear is your responsibility. If you ask God to release you from fear, you're implying it's not your responsibility. What you should ask for is what? Help in the conditions that bring your fear about. And what is the conditions that make you afraid? What are the conditions that are causing fear? What are the conditions that are causing conflict? These conditions always entail a willingness to be separate. So what's really making me afraid is my willingness to be separate. What makes a person afraid is their willingness to be separate from God. What makes a person afraid is they're willing to be separate from love. That we're willing to be separate, that's what's bringing the fear about. So when it says to ask for help in the conditions, it's not talking about so much help in the outer conditions, which is okay. It's perfectly okay to ask for help in the outer conditions. But your fear is not really coming from the outer conditions. What is your fear really coming from? It's coming from the meaning that you're giving to the outer condition. Your fear is coming from the meaning that you're giving to it. Your fears always comes from the what? It comes from the meaning that you're giving. You're afraid about what's going on in your relationship. It's the meaning you're giving to what's going on in your relationship that's causing fear. So what did Spirit just tell us from the Course? It just told us that your fear is coming from a willingness to be separate from God, your willingness to be separate from the truth, a willingness to be separate from love. And so if your fear is coming about from your own willingness to be separate, then at this level, you can help it. I can do something about it if I realize that my fear is coming from my willingness to be separate from God, separate from love, separate from truth, separate from all that is. All of our fear in the world is coming from our sense of separation from each other. All of our fear in the world is coming from our sense of separation. Separation is the cause of all fear. Separation is the cause of all pain. Separation is the cause of all lack, all guilt, all attack, all sickness comes from a sense of separation from God, a sense of separation from your source, a sense of separation from your source. I'm the divine repetition teacher. And I'm going to repeat stuff over and over and over and over and over again, because we can sit around and endlessly analyze the Course for days, but that's not the same as remembering what it's saying. And what is it that we're much too tolerant of? What is it that you put up with too much according to the Course? What you put up with too much is mind wandering. What your mind is, picture that visually. Your mind is wandering. Let my mind go out through the hall right now. My mind is wandering. So what is it that allows your mind to wander? Well, what allows your mind to wander is you're passively condoning your mind's miscreations. I'm going along with my thinking that is not true. So the Course is saying you are condoning the programming and the thinking that you've gotten from your ego and from the world. We are passively condoning the fearful thoughts that we are receiving from within ourselves and from what appears to be outside. So what is the mind's miscreation? The longer I do this, 43 years in, sometimes when I'm reading, I just smack myself upside the head, because it becomes so obvious that this is the simplest thing I could have ever studied and read, but my mind was making the whole thing more complicated than it is, right? So I'm condoning my mind's miscreations means that I am condoning separation. My mind's miscreations are coming from my sense of being separate from God, separate from love, separate from the answer, separate from you, separate from peace, but who is it that's choosing for separation? I'm the one that's choosing for separation. So the result of choosing for separation doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The result of your wrong thinking doesn't matter. The result of your ego doesn't matter. What matters is that you're still condoning old thinking, separation thinking, ego thinking. What matters is that we are still thinking incorrectly. The result of our incorrect thinking doesn't really matter. What's important is to recognize you have incorrect thinking. So we get caught up on the result of our incorrect. I got incorrect thinking about relationships. So now I'm trying to deal with this messed up relationship that I've made because of my incorrect thinking. But I need to be putting the focus on the fact that I have incorrect thinking, and I'm condoning my mind's misthinking and miscreation. That's what we should be focused on, and not the result of our wrong thinking. So the result doesn't matter. The result of your thinking doesn't matter. What you need to realize is it's your thinking. That's what I need to recognize. It's my thinking that's causing my fear. The result of my thinking fearfully really doesn't matter. If it ends up making me afraid of cats, it's not about me dealing with making sure no cats enter my life because I'm scared of them. It's about me recognizing I have misperceptions that's making me afraid. Everybody clear with that? We deal too much with the result of the error. We don't actually get rid of the error itself. So the Course says the correction is always the same. Good. I don't have to figure out a lot of different corrections. You mean I don't have to come up with a whole lot of different answers, Lord? No. The correction is always the same. This is what you do. This is what you do for the correction. Hello? This is what you do for the correction of your wrong thinking that causes fear. First thing you do is ask your higher self if your choice is in accord with your higher self before you choose to do anything. Before you choose to do anything, ask Spirit if your choice is in accord with Spirit. From a course perspective, you could say, before you choose to do anything, ask Jesus of the course if your choice is in accord with Jesus. Or you could say, I'm going to ask if my choice is in accord with the Holy Spirit before I choose to do anything. So what do? Before you choose to do anything? Does anything mean anything? Is there any exclusion from anything? No. So before you choose to do anything, ask me if your choice is in accord with my choice. So how do you know if you're choosing in accord with God, Spirit, love, truth, Jesus of the course? How do you know that you're choosing correctly in terms of how you see things? Well, if you are sure that your choice is the right choice, if you're sure that your choice is in accord with God, I like to put it this way. If I'm sure that my choice is in accord with what the Course in Miracles is teaching me, because the Course in Miracles is one way the Word of God is getting to us. So the Course in Miracles is like God talking to you through a book. It's like Spirit talking to you through a book. Until you can hear the voice for yourself on your own, then the Course is there to give us the correct way of looking at it. Until we have heard this so much that we remember it and we are obeying what it says. When I was learning how to drive, I needed someone to tell me the rules of the road until I learned the rules of the road. And when I learned the rules of the road, I didn't need the book to teach me the rules of the road. But it started out with the book which had the rules of the road. This is exactly what the Course in Miracles is doing. It's like going, let me give you the rules of happiness because you have miscreation. You have fear. You feel separate. So your decisions are going to be wrong because they're coming from the idea you're separate in a body. So your decisions are going to be wrong. What you need is to stop condoning your wrong thinking. And before you choose to do anything, you need to start asking Spirit. And if you're truly asking your guide and you are really hearing it, you can be sure that there will be no fear. So a choice that's coming from your true self, a choice that's coming from your joining with God, and you are sure of it, there will be no fear. You will not be afraid when you're making a choice, and it's a choice that's the right choice because it's a choice that you're asking Spirit to be in alignment with that choice. What did you just say, Earl? Before you choose to do anything, ask me if your choice is in accord with mine. Before you do anything, ask Spirit if your choice is in accord with Spirit. If your choice is in accord with love and Spirit and truth, you can be sure that you will not be afraid and you won't feel any fear and you won't feel any guilt and you won't feel any anger and you won't feel any conflict. So if you think you've asked Spirit for an answer and you still feel conflict, then you can absolutely be sure that you don't really believe your choice is the right choice. Because if you really believe your choice was the right choice, you would feel inspired and you would feel peaceful and you would feel glad. You know, if I've lost my wallet and you tell me where my wallet is, then I'm going to be glad about it. I'm not going to be in conflict about it. I'm going to be glad about it. So if you're trying to make choices and decisions and all you feel is conflict, you have not heard your answer yet from God, from Spirit, from truth. Because if you're sure that what you're getting ready to do is the right choice, and the right choice is the choice that you make with the truth, you won't be afraid, you won't feel conflict. Practical application of the Course. Do you know that fear is a sign? People be asking about signs. I'm born under the sign of Sagittarius. And the Course says all y'all jokers born under the sign of fear. because you all are full of conflict all the time. You actually have a lot of fear. Then he goes, well, fear is always a sign of strain. So whenever you feel fear, you are feeling a strain. So whenever you're in fear, you're feeling a strain. And you're going to always feel a strain when what you want to do is conflicting with what you're doing. So whenever what you want to do is conflicting with what you're doing, it's going to make you feel strained, and it's going to make you feel afraid. So when you feel afraid, what you are actually doing is in conflict with what you really want to do. Where you ever in your life you have strain, it's where you're not doing what you really want to do. It's whenever what you're doing is in conflict with what you want to do, that's what makes fear, that's what makes strain. So now, and again, you don't have to analyze the Course in Miracles because it's explaining everything that it says as it says it. That's why I suggest getting the book when I'm doing the class so that I can help you get past your reading blocks. Because one of the main things I hear people say is how difficult the Course is to read. And that's just an excuse not to read it. It's just an excuse not to read it. It's just an excuse. Whenever you say it's too difficult, well, then that means you don't really want it. Because the Course taught me that when you really want something, the attraction of the thing that you want will pull you past any obstacles to having it. So if you can be stopped instantly when you say you want to do something, do you know that means you don't really want to do it? If the first little thing comes up and it makes you stop, then that's not something you really want to do. So keep in mind that the Course is telling us exactly how fear comes up. Number one, fear comes up whenever what you do conflicts with whenever what you want conflicts with what you do. Whenever what you want conflicts with what you do, then that causes fear. So fear shows up in two ways. Fear shows up for two reasons. Do you know there's only two reasons why you are afraid, angry, and upset, or whatever you're feeling right now that's not peaceful? There's two reasons. The two reasons are you are choosing to do things that conflict all the time, one after another, or simultaneously. In other words, you're doing a lot of stuff you don't really want to do, or you're doing one thing after another that you don't really want to do. What? Fear comes up when you choose to do things that conflict simultaneously or one after another. Do you get up in the morning and until you go to bed at night, you feel like you're constantly doing things that you really don't feel inspired to do and that you really don't want to do? Or you're doing a lot of things that you don't really want to do? Well, a person who's doing things that they don't enjoy is a person that is increasing their fear all day. And that's why by the time the day is over, in many cases, people just want to pass out, go to bed, veg up in front of the TV, because what they've done all day is increase their sense of strain and conflict, because they don't have enough faith in God to believe that they would be taken care of if they would do what they really love and would do what they want to do. In many cases, people are doing not what they really want to do, but what they believe they have to do to survive because they don't believe in a higher power that will sustain them or take care of them. So an atheist has to feel a certain amount of strain and fear because they are totally depending on themselves, separate from everybody else, for everything. So what happens when you are doing one thing after another that you don't really want to do, or you're doing a lot of things at the same time that you don't want to do? Then this makes you have behavior that conflicts, which means even the people around you never know how you're going to be behaving from one minute to the next because you're in conflict, and a person that's in conflict is erratic and undependable because they're inconsistent. So when you are doing things that you don't want to do, then you're also behaving in a way that's conflict with the people around you and with yourself. And that conflicting behavior, what does the Course say that conflicting behavior is going to do? Well, the Course says that conflicting behavior is going to become intolerable. Things are going to become more and more intolerable to you. So are you a person that's experiencing more and more things that's intolerable to you? Well, you're still spending your day doing things that you don't really want to do because you feel separate from your good and separate from your source. So you're just increasing your fear and increasing your strain. So why is it that it becomes intolerable? Well, because the part of your mind that wants to do something and what you're doing is outraged. What a person who's doing what they don't want to do all day, they don't know it, but they're mad as hell and they're angry all day long. If you're doing what you don't want to do, you have a lot of hidden subconscious anger. Why are you angry? Because the part of you that wants to do something other than what you're doing, that part of you is outraged. I really want to be outside today, hiking in the woods, having a cool out time, but I got to go to work at a job that I hate. Well, the part of me that wants to go out and enjoy the day is outraged because I'm, again, getting ready to do something that I don't really want to do all day long because I feel separate. Don't forget, the Course says the problem is separation. And if you really knew your connection to God, then you wouldn't be doing what you don't want to do all day because you would know you were sustained by God and you are going to be provided for one way or another. Your problem is your lack of faith. That's your problem. Your problem isn't with your child, your job, your friends, your coworker, your weight. It's none of the stuff on the outside that you're saying is your problem. Your problem is your atheism. Your problem is you need to learn how to get rid of the blocks you have to knowing you're connected to God, your source. If I tell you all anything other than that, which I know telling you anything other than that, for many people, that's what they want to hear is anything other than what I just said. But I'm here for the people who realize they want to connect with a higher power and they know they got some issues around that and they want to get that block out of the way. That's what Earl Purdy is teaching for. It's not how to manifest a house and how to manifest a car and how to manifest your soulmate. It doesn't make any difference if you manifest any of those things if you're still making yourself afraid, if you still think you're separate, if even in the relationship you start doing what you don't really want to do and acting like you don't really want to act. Then you're using the relationship to increase your fear and your strain. So if you're in a relationship with someone or a friendship with someone and you can't be your authentic self, then that means you are doing conflicting things in that relationship and you're acting the way you think you should without really wanting to. So really what you're doing in that relationship is making yourself what? More and more afraid and increasing the strain. Okay, so the first thing that causes fear is doing what you don't want to do, conflicting things one after another or at the same time. And then it says, second, you can behave as you think you should. So what is the second way you cause fear? You behave the way you think you should, but you don't really want to. It's really just another variation of the first sentence. It's really saying the same thing twice. If you're behaving as you think you should, but you don't really want to, this makes fear. But what's the cool part about behaving the way you think you should? Well, see, if I'm behaving in church and I really want to jump up and down and shout, let's say, but I'm sitting still, and so then I'm behaving the way I think I should behave, but I don't really want to behave this way. I really want to jump up and down and shout. But what I'm doing is behaving the way I think I should in this environment. So what does it do? It gives consistent behavior. Earl looks like, no matter what Earl feels when he comes in the door, he acts consistently. You don't come here one time and I cuss you out, and the next time I'm friendly, and the next time I'm standoffish, and my behavior is consistent. So there's plenty of times where I'm behaving the way I think I should, but maybe I don't entirely want to, right? Maybe I don't really feel like smiling when I come in because something's on my mind. but I do it, right? That's presenting consistent behavior, but it might not be what I really want to do. So that's making me afraid. And that's creating strain and conflict. So what's happening in both of those cases? Doing what you don't want to do, one thing after another, and behaving the way you think you ought to, but you don't really want to do it. Where the Course says, and that's going to mean that your thinking and your behavior are out of accord. Your thinking and your behavior are out of accord. What does that mean? You are doing what you don't really want to do. When you're doing what you don't really want to do. Anytime you are doing what you don't really want to do, you are increasing fear and strain and sickness and lack. Whenever you're doing what you don't want to do, when you're thinking what you don't want to think, when you're with somebody you don't really want to be with, when you're on a job you don't really want to be on, when you're doing things all day that you don't really want to do, when you're doing things that don't inspire you and move you and make you feel connected to source, what are you doing? You're either making yourself feel conflict all day, or you're making yourself feel peace all day. How do you know when you're making yourself feel fear all day? You're doing things that you don't want to do one after another, or you're doing a lot of things you don't want to do at the same time, or you're behaving the way you think you should, but you know you don't really want to do it. Is anybody here familiar with these states that I'm describing? Is there any area of your life that you know you're doing that in? Well, in case you're in denial, I'll help you out. Do you have any fear, strain, or conflict in any area of your life? And if you have any fear, strain, or conflict in any area of your life, according to this, which we don't have to believe, according to this, you are doing two things. You're doing one thing after another that you don't really want to do, or you're doing a whole lot of things that you don't want to do. That's one set. Or you're behaving the way you think you ought to be behaving, but you really don't want to behave that way. So if you're being a certain way that you really don't want to be around somebody, you're just increasing fear and strain and conflict within yourself. Have a nice day. So what happens when you're doing what you don't really want to do? He says, you start to feel coerced. When it looks like somebody's trying to get you to do something that you don't want to do. When it looks like something is you're having to do that you don't want to do. Then you start feeling coerced. Have you ever felt that way? Like you were being coerced? Guess what? What follows coercion? The Course says, well, after you feel coerced, what's going to happen is rage. Coercion usually produces rage. So before I go off on you, I've been doing a lot of things I don't want to do with you. I've been behaving the way I think I should behave with you, but without really wanting to. That's why we're having this issue in our relationship right now. This is why there's so much anger in our relationship right now. It's because one or both of us are doing something we don't want to do with each other, or we're behaving the way we think we should with each other, but we don't really want to. So that makes me feel more and more like I'm being coerced. And then one day I go off with rage. And then when I get mad and I get angry, I'm going to project that anger and upset onto you. It's your fault. You're the one that's making me upset. If you were different, I'd be happy. If you spoke differently, if you acted differently. See, now where did it start? It started with me being inauthentic and doing what I really didn't want to do. And since I'm consistently doing what I don't really want to do, I'm starting to feel coerced. And I'm getting angrier and angrier until I lose it. And I project all of that upset as being caused by you. Woo! So you get to a point in your relationship where somebody might be going off in rage, and you'll respond with, I really want you to do what you really want to do, as long as it's not attack. In other words, I know you're upset with me because you are not doing something that you really want to do. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to start doing what you really want to do with me. I tell my friends and anybody I'm in a relationship with, I don't want you to give me or do anything for me any longer than it does not feel like a sacrifice to you. The second it starts to feel like, I don't know, I volunteered to pick you up 2 times, but I don't think I feel so good about the 3rd time. When then you know that's Earl telling you, don't pick him up. Because Earl doesn't want anybody to sacrifice for him in any way. So that sounds like an easy friendship. If you're friends with somebody that only wants you to do what gives you peace and not give you any grief when you don't do what they want you to do, keep that friend. Invest in that peaceful relationship. Don't take that peaceful relationship for granted and spend all your time working on the knucklehead relationship. You're taking all your attention and putting it on the person who is asking you to sacrifice, who is trying to get you to do things you don't want to do, and y'all are just going back and forth. And that person get all your attention and all your loving. But the person is saying, don't sacrifice, do what you really want to do. I want you to have peace. We don't give attention sometimes to those relationships because we think there's no problem. Right? I'm not having any problem with you, then I'm tempted not to give you any attention because I think that's handled. But we've forgotten the universal law is whatever you give your attention to is what you have more of. So if you're giving your attention to the people that you have the greatest amount of anger, guilt, grievances, and conflicts with, then you are just increasing the anger, guilt, grievances, and conflict. If you put more energy of appreciation into the people who don't give you a hard time and appreciate you and love you and who feels confident and secure enough to make themselves happy and not hold you responsible, and you give them, the people will go, how do I do that, Earl? How do I make sure I give them attention and not just take them for granted? Focus on appreciating them fully. That's how you do it. You know, I'm taking my attention off of knucklehead. That's a spiritual name. Because they are your teacher. They are your guru. So they are like a master. This is Master Knucklehead. And it can go any gender, any binary, anything pronoun you want. Knucklehead can be anything. Okay. So the Course in Miracles says so many. Do you know the Course in Miracles says so many times? Slowly, read me slowly, do me slowly. Whew. And I have to remember that and stop because my ego wants me to speed through it and forget it. That's what I used to do. Speed through it, forget it. Speed through it, forget it. So I'm going to go back because I got to make this practical. That's what I do. I just try to make it related to my everyday reality because if it's the truth, it applies to everything. So that means whenever there is fear, what is it you haven't done? Whenever there is fear, just tell yourself, I haven't made up my mind. Wherever there's fear is where you haven't made up your mind. Wherever there is fear is where you haven't made a decision. Wherever you have fear is where you haven't made a decision. So wherever there is fear is because you haven't made up your mind. So when you haven't made up your mind, do you know the Course says when you haven't made up your mind, it means that your mind is split about how you're going to behave, right? Because I haven't made up my mind, so I still got 2 choices. I think I have to go back and forth, right? So he says your behavior is going to become erratic. That's why I like to tell people, you don't have to sacrifice for me. The minute that you don't want to do something for me, just don't do it. It's okay. I'm not going to try to make you feel guilty. I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to believe you don't like me. Actually, what I'm doing is I'm practicing the truth that I'm learning from the Course, because it's taught me that when you don't feel like you have to sacrifice, you're much more likely to want to do something for somebody when you don't feel like you're losing because of it. Because sacrifice is the idea of somehow or another I'm losing because I'm doing this. A father who works 70 hours a week to feed his family, and he's loving and he loves his family, does not see that 70 hours a week as a sacrifice. When you love somebody, the things you do for them, you don't see it as a bargain, and you don't see it as a sacrifice. So sacrifice is an attitude. It's not a physical condition. You lose your partner for whatever reason, relationship breakup, you can feel like it's a tragedy. Somebody else have a relationship breakup and it look like they lost their partner, and they go, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was the exact same act, partners left. One person saw it as a tragedy, and the other person saw it as a joy. But they seen it as a joy because they finally doing what they want to do, get away from them. Remember I said, peace comes from doing what you want to do, right? So when you're doing something you know is right for you, then you're going to feel good about it. You're going to go, I'm glad that that relationship ended, when you got the correct perception of it. If you got the wrong perception of it, and you're being inauthentic, and you're in a relationship that you've been doing what you didn't really want to do, and they've been doing what they really want to do, and you really haven't been being your true selves, then that relationship is going to have a lot of fear and conflict, strain, and rage. So you know those are two people who don't want to treat each other right, because that would be the only choice if they loved each other. The fact that they're going back and forth means they're both still doing something they don't really want to do in that relationship. And you can apply this to job, anything else. I just like to give specific examples because I think that's helpful. Don't you? Yeah, because if you study A Course in Miracles, you cannot stay in denial about what's causing your pain. You can't fool yourself. I like to say, you're not as nice as you think you are. None of you are. And have a nice day. I am more selfish than I think I am. I know I'm more selfish than I think I am, because I'm going to make up an image of myself that I'm more than I think I am. But it doesn't mean I'm bad. It just means I'm learning how to open up more and more and more and be more and more and more generous. I beat myself up about stuff. The Course in Miracles has taught me after 40 years, that's the stupidest solution to anything I could come up with, is beating myself up every time I do something wrong. The Course in Miracles taught me, he said, look, Purdy, you want to know how to get rid of your weakness. You want to know how to get rid of your ego. He says, let me tell you right here in the workbook, it said tolerance for weakness. Having tolerance for your weakness will keep your weakness from having any power over you. And I used to think, I have to get rid of my weakness. I got to fight my weakness. He said, no. Have tolerance that you know you're not as loving as you want to be yet. Have some tolerance with the fact that you still have some fear and conflict. Have some tolerance that you still try to manipulate people through guilt and anger from time to time, even though you might not do it as much as you used to, because you're moving in the right direction. You're trying to become a more peaceful, loving person. So have tolerance for the ego. That means have tolerance for the world. What? Because the world is just one big massive expression of the ego, fear and separation. So if you got to be tolerant of your own weakness, you have to also have tolerance for the weakness of others. But if you do, nothing about their weakness can stop you. And then he says a beautiful statement. How can your weakness stop you when weakness has no power? What? How can your being weak stop you when weakness means it has no power? So the last thing that can stop you is your weaknesses. Because the nature of weak is it has no power. It has no strength. So how can your weakness stop you from doing anything?
Makes no sense.
It makes no sense when you really think about it. Because people go, well, I'm too weak to do that. No, you're too strong. That's what you're afraid of. You're afraid of your power. That's what you're scared of. How great you are. So I'm like, woo, shut up. That's what I tell Holy Spirit, shut up. I'm talking about cuss it out. And you know what the voice, that God voice inside me does? It just laughs. When I get all mad, it just laughs. He said, that's going to be how you're going to get rid of all your problems one day, Purdy. I said, what? You're going to laugh them away. Because when you laugh at something, you're not taking it seriously. If you're not taking it seriously, then you're not making it a real idea to manifest. Because you laughed it away. So the end of the world means you're going to be laughing at it. The end of the world doesn't mean everything's going to blow up. It just means when you experience the end of the world, you see the joke. And the joke is, you could ever think you could be in any situation, circumstance, or condition that God could not sustain you, protect you, and provide for you. One day, that's going to be such an absurd idea to you that you're going to laugh at it. And you're going to wonder, how could I ever put myself through all the stuff that I went through? Because 90% of everything that a person is afraid going to happen never happens anyway. Mm-hmm. If you would look back over your life and go, God, if I just let myself have a good time when I was worrying about this and when I was worrying about that never really happened, that meant I could have just had a totally peaceful mind, right? Because it didn't happen, the thing I was worried about. That was time, that was free time. That was time I could have been feeling good. Well, you're doing the same thing right now about the stuff you're worrying about right now. You're still doing the exact same thing again. You're worrying about things that are not going to happen. If you correct the way that you behave, then all you start doing is behaving consistently even though you don't want to. But when you just, if I don't like you, but I just start acting like I do, then I'm still doing the same thing. I'm behaving the way I think I should without really wanting to, and so I'm increasing my fear and my rage. So what would be the best state for you to possibly be in? What would be the best state of mind for you to possibly be in? He says, to be in the state of mind where you bring your mind under my guidance without conscious effort. In other words, the best state of mind that you could be in is that you don't even put in the effort to putting your mind under the guidance of God and love anymore. Like right now, we're working and studying, trying to learn how to put our minds at the wheel of spirit, to let spirit guide us. We think we're learning to do that. He says, but the truth is that it is possible for you to reach a state of mind that you bring everything under the guidance of love and God and truth. There is a state of mind you will get to that it won't be no effort for you to let spirit, love, and truth guide you. That you won't be in a class or reading a book or studying to try to make it okay for you to have love. Think about that. All of our spiritual work is all about somehow or another getting to the point that we see it as okay for us to be happy and us to have love and don't feel alone. And so the Course in Miracles is saying to you, you can bring your mind under the guidance of Jesus, Spirit, Truth, whatever higher self, whatever word you want to use. That can happen without effort. But here's the problem. This is why you have not brought your mind under the guidance of God yet. He says, because it implies a willingness you haven't developed yet. You haven't developed that willingness. You're not willing to let your mind be guided by love. You're not willing to let your mind be guided by spirit. He says that's the problem. So where does the strength to do something come from? Have you ever wondered about that? Like, how do I get the strength to do this? Well, it's right there on the page. The strength to do comes from your undivided decision. When you make the undivided decision, you were going to show up the day you did. Right? So the strength to do what it took to come here came from your decision. So the Course is saying anything that you don't have the strength to do, would that be something you haven't made a decision about?
Okay, that's good.
Anything you think you don't have the strength to do is something you haven't made an undivided decision about. So wherever in your life where you think you don't have the strength to do something, that's the area that you haven't made a decision to do it.
Just make a decision.
You just haven't made a decision yet. So wherever you say you're weak, wherever you say you want to do it but you're not doing it, just say, you know what? I don't have prosperity right now because I haven't made an undivided decision to have it. I don't have a relationship that I seek joy and peace right now because I haven't made an undivided decision to have it. Because if I had made the undivided decision to have a loving relationship, I'd have the strength to have a loving relationship. And I would do what it would take to have one if I really made the decision to have one.
Makes sense.
Makes too much sense. So let's promptly forget most of this when we leave. Agreed? You forget you ever came. I realize that's why I don't have a lot of repeat people right now. They don't even remember coming in the first place. Because I forget. I read the course and forget what it says. Don't you? Have you read this or come to this class and while you were in it, you were like, wow, whoa, I see that. And then as soon as we walk out the door, the curtain drops. Right? So the course is telling us the most important thing you need to do is remember this. You all think your all's understanding is important. It's not your understanding that I want from you. I want you to remember what I'm saying. I want you to remember where I told you the keys are. I don't need you to analyze where did the keys come from, what was the shop that made the key, was the key made in Asia or was it made in the United States? I'm not asking you to analyze the key, I'm asking you to use the key. And using the key is recognizing that if you feel like you don't have the strength to do something, you have not made an undivided decision. How can you tell when the Holy Spirit is asking you to do something? He says, well, number one, God would never ask you to do something you wouldn't be willing to do. So anything that you're not willing to do is not what your guidance is asking you to do. Your guidance is never asking you to do something that you're not willing to do. God is never going to ask you to do something that you're not willing to do. Truth will never ask you to do something you don't want to do. Spirit is too smart to ask somebody to do what they don't want to do because Spirit knows it's much more likely to get done if you ask the person that wants to do it. What? That makes too much sense. No, I know. My way is to take the person who don't want to do it and somehow or another brutalize them into doing it. That's my way. My way is, I know you don't want to do this, but I'm going to, through my anger, I'm going to make you do it. No, love would never ask me to do something I'm not willing to do. Somebody that loves me would not be asking me to do things I don't want to do. Somebody that loves you is not going to be constantly asking you to do something you don't want to do. And somebody you love, you're also not going to be constantly asking them to do things that they don't want to do, because love cannot ask more than you're willing to do. And the strength to do it is going to come from your decision to do it. Where does your strength to do it come from? Your decision to do it. Now, there is no strain in doing the will of God because there's no strain in doing something that you want. So when you get to the point that you want the will of God, then you won't have any strain anymore doing the will of God. The more, in other words, the more I really want to be happy, the more that I am going to feel like my will is happiness too. My Creator wants me to be happy. Me joining the will of God means I'm going into agreement with that. What does joining the will of God mean? I'm going into agreement with that. My Creator wants me to have complete happiness and joy and health and happiness. And I'm going to join the will of God by saying, I do too. See, joining the will of God means I do too. God wants me to have love, I do too. Joining the will of God, just like it says right here, there's no strain in doing God's will as soon as you recognize it's also yours. What is the simple lesson? What he says, I'm going to give you jokers a simple lesson, but I'm going to tell you something. you're apt to overlook the lesson. What? There's a lesson, but you all have been overlooking. Then I go, well, what is the lesson I'm overlooking? He says, well, I'm going to, what's the word, y'all? I will therefore what? Repeat it. See, that's why I'm repeating. He says, you repeat it. Now, there's one thing I like to do. I'm going to repeat it. I urge you to listen. He says, that's your part. I'm going to repeat it. You listen. I'm going to repeat it. What do you do? Yes. Listen. Okay. So, this is it. Ready? Only your mind is producing your fear. The only thing that's making you afraid is your mind. It's your thinking that's making you afraid. It is your own thinking that's making you afraid. Only the mind can produce fear. You could also say, only the mind can produce guilt. Only the mind can produce sickness. Only the mind can produce attack. Only the mind. Only the mind. Okay, then it goes, and you're going to produce fear when? Every time you're in conflict about what you want, you are producing fear in your mind. Because fear is coming from your mind. That upset is coming from your mind. That upset you're feeling, that depression, whatever you may be going through, is coming from your mind because you are in conflict about what you want. You don't know what you want. You don't know what you want. That's why your mind is producing fear. And it says it does so whenever the mind is conflicted in what it wants. That produces strain. When you're in conflict about what you want, it makes you feel like you're under a lot of strain. Why are you under a lot of strain? Because what you want to do and what you're doing are discordant. You're not doing what you want to do. You're doing what you think you should without really wanting to. So how do you correct that? By accepting a unified goal, which is the same thing as making an undivided decision. He says, well, the way you get out of your strain, notice how the Course is a genius in saying that. Well, that's why I'm saying it. Okay. Now watch this. I'm not sure I understand. You must be a true Course student. That's a true Course student. I don't understand. I just don't understand. You know, what do you understand about you're upset because you're not doing what you really want to do and you're behaving the way you think you should, but you don't really want to, or you're doing one thing after another without really wanting to? What is it you don't understand about when you're sure the answer is in accord with your true self? You won't be afraid. That's how you will know your answer is coming from your true self, because you will feel peace. Don't tell me you can't grasp that. Y'all, we all know we can grasp that. But what is it that's not giving me the strength to do? I still haven't made an undivided decision about what you just said today. Or you'd have the strength to do it. If you walk out here today and you go, well, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to focus in on this more than ever before. That's only going to be happening because you've made an undivided decision to do it. And because you made an undivided decision to let go of anger, guilt, and grievances in the past, and you really found it to be truly happy and to have loving relationships, because that's what you're doing when you decide to do what this says, then once you decide you deserve that, then you're going to have the strength to do everything that gives you what you want. And you're going to know the key to having what you want is, as much as possible, only doing what you want to do and being around people who want you to only do what you want to do. And there are people in the world like that, but the reason why you don't know any of them is because you are not like that. You're like the people who are just like you, also in conflict and in strain, because they haven't made a decision. Because like always attracts like. You're not going to be the crappiest person in the world thinking you're going to attract the nicest, most loving person in the world, because having you wouldn't be fair to them. Right? I'm Mr. Bliss Love, right? And then this person is not capable of giving any real love. Dysfunctions up and down the yeehaw, right? And so somehow or another, they're going to attract me, which means I'm not receiving the love that I'm giving. So the truth is, a person who doesn't know how to love, who's not doing what they want to do, who's feeling the strain and fear and separation, attracts another person that's exactly like that, so they can learn their lessons in love together, so that they can have a loving, learning partner. You all messed up. You attracted people just as messed up as you are, so y'all can all learn the truth of how loving and beautiful you are together. I know you have jealousy, but wouldn't it be easy for a person that was just as jealous to understand your jealousy? So you always win when you're with somebody that's just like you. Because how can you condemn each other? Y'all just alike. Be glad you attract equals. But just make sure that the next person you get in a relationship with has made an undivided decision for love and for peace. Then you will not be creating a strain with each other, because you'll be doing what you want to do with each other. Then you have the strength to do it. All right, I'm going to stop here and do a quick little 2-3 minute recap at the end. I'm Earl Purdy, and if you'd like to make a financial expression of appreciation, I am a full-time teacher. I appreciate that. Right. Well, I appreciate you all sharing. Is what he just laid down on the seat. Okay. All right. And if you're online and you'd like to make a financial expression of appreciation, you can use Zelle, you can use Venmo, you can use PayPal, you can use the Cash App. All you need is Earl Purdy at earlpurdy.com, P-U-R-D-Y, Earl Purdy at earlpurdy.com. That's my email address. I'm available for one-on-one coaching, mentoring, counseling sessions about how to apply this to your life and the situations that you're going through. It's a one-on-one situation between me and you, bringing my 40-plus years into working with people into our session. Session is called a clarity session. Go to my website, earlpurdy.com. It explains it in detail, and you can self-book. You can self-book an appointment right from my website. And those of you who have an interest in also receiving guidance and receiving information through astrology and numerology, I'm also an astrologer and a numerologist. The universe spirit is trying to reach us every way possible. It's just your spiritual path is the way that the idea that God isn't crazy makes the most sense to you. And the Course says, yeah, your path is whatever way the idea that God is love makes the most sense to you. That's your path. So I'm on the path, so all the stuff I know how to do with the metaphysics, astrology, the Course, everything is my path. This is the way that the truth comes to me, and I don't have conflict about my path because I've made a decision that it's my path, right? So the minute I made a decision, an undivided decision about what I wanted to do and the path that I wanted to be on, that was when my life took a huge, huge drop in drama and conflict, because I was no longer torn between two different ways that I wanted to be. Woo! Okay, Sunday, 1:00 p.m. Mountain Time here in Denver, Colorado, on the Facebook Live on the Earl Purdy page. We do another Course in Miracles class. If you're in Denver, 1555 race, feel free to drop in. And on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, I do hardcore Course in Miracles on Facebook Live on the Earl Purdy page in order for you to go deeper into the Course. I'm just here to be truly helpful. I'm here to represent God who sent me. I don't have to worry about what to say, and I don't have to worry about what to do, because God sent me, right? And God will direct me. And I'm going to be healed, you all, as I let God teach me to heal. See, every time I do this, I experience a healing. every single time I do it. Because the Course taught me that what comes through you has an effect on you. Whatever you let come through you has an effect on you. So if I let anger come through me, it has an effect on me. If I let anger and guilt come through me, it's having an effect on me. Whatever's coming through me, joy is coming through me, is having an effect on me. Peace is coming through me. So whatever I shoot out to everybody else has got to come to me first. So when I started to think about that, wait a minute, you mean everything I'm giving everybody else, I'm the first one? Yeah, it's got to come through you. So you number one. And that where the bullet would be most powerful is at the entrance. Right? It's coming from me. The anger, the fear, the love is coming through me, from my center. So it's going to hit me first. But I said what I feel is coming from you. And how I feel is not coming from you. How I feel is coming from me. Okay, give me 2 minutes. Now, remember this. Love cannot ask more than you're willing to do. Holy Spirit will never ask you to do more than you are willing to do. Holy Spirit will never ask you to do more than you are willing to do. God will never ask you to do more than you are willing to do. Love will never ask you to do more than you're willing to do. If you think that God is asking you to do something, but it's the thing you're not willing to do. If you think God or the universe is trying to force you to do something, but it's not the thing you really want to do, then you can be sure that it's not God that's asking you to do it. Because God would never ask you to do what you're not willing to do. God would never ask you to do what you're not willing to do. So what you're not willing to do is not what God is asking you to do. What you're not willing to do is not what God is asking you to do. Where does the strength to do come from? Where does the strength to do come from? Who remembers that? Where does the strength to do something come from? It comes from your undivided decision. So, here you go. Make it practical. Make it practical. Let's make it practical. Look at your life and think about some things you know that you haven't been willing to do. And would you like to have the strength to do it? Y'all know y'all don't really want to do it. You can't even respond. Or the one thing you can be sure of, God ain't asking you to do. That's the thing. It's like, I don't really feel like doing that. Well, that's not God or love or truth that's asking you to do it. And if you go ahead, and some things until you change, you'll still be doing some things you don't seem like you want to do. Let's get it straight. This is a process. You're not going to walk out here today and only do what you want to do. You're still going to be tempted to sacrifice and compromise. But at least you made the decision to go in the direction of no sacrifice and no compromise. And you want to be on the lookout for people who share that goal, because people who share the same goal with you are the people that you do not conflict with. If you have a conflict in a relationship, you all have forgotten what the purpose of the relationship is. Y'all need to go back to, why did y'all get together in the first place? Wherever you feel conflict, you're doing something you don't want to do. If you're behaving consistently, but it's not really what you want to do, you're making yourself afraid. So, how do I let go of the fear? How do I let go of the conflict? I make an undivided decision. What's another good word for decision? Another good word is choice. Choice is a decision. Sometimes I like to say an undivided choice. And that gives me a kind of different juice. Try that. I got to make an undivided choice. Now, sometimes choosing can seem easier than making a decision. right? I got to make a decision. I got to make a choice. I got to make a choice, an undivided choice. I make an undivided choice every Sunday that I'm going to teach this class no matter what. So I don't get up in the morning in conflict about what I'm going to do today, or in conflict about doing my class, because I made an undivided decision to do it, and it gives me the strength to do it no matter what. Did y'all hear that practical answer? The strength to do comes from what? Your undivided decision. Where is your fear coming from? What's producing it? The mind. What's making the fear? It's because you're in conflict about what you want. When you're in strain, is it likely that sooner or later you're going to go off in rage if you keep on feeling coerced? And then you're going to blame it on somebody else, project it on somebody else? Well, how do you keep from doing that? All you have to do is accept a unified goal. Accept a unified goal. Got to do what? I got to accept a unified goal. What do you want? A unified goal. What do you need? A unified goal. What do we want? A unified goal. What do we need? A unified goal. What do we want? A unified goal. Mighty companions, I love you. May the course be with you. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate you. I need you to hear that these four times, and share it. Share the video. Oh, I needed that.